I'm Alasdair Beckett-King, and I'm joined by Anca Tutescu. Hello, Anca. Hi.
Hello, Alasdair, and hello, everybody.
Hello, welcome to the stream. You are the producer of a game called Misgiven, which I think people
That's
can
right.
see at the moment. Tell me a little bit about yourself, the game, and your role on the game.
So I am the co-founder, co-director, and producer at a studio called Symmetry Break here in Hamburg, Germany. And Misgiven is our first project together. We founded the studio a couple of years ago, and Misgiven is actually quite a bit older than that. And I'll get into that into a bit, but to introduce the game first, it's a narrative sci-fi adventure about basically the feeling of having a lump in your throat. As we like to basically give this one-liner. It's the game about the lump in your throat because it's short and sweet. And the context of the game is that it's a female protagonist who is a space traveler, and she is thrown into this completely new life. She crashes her ship somewhere in a city that is full of toxic fog. Everybody here wears breathing masks to survive, and she has to basically adopt a mask of her own. But it's not her mask, so this mask belongs to somebody else. It's somebody else's face and identity, and throughout the game, she has the choice to basically be this other person, to impersonate them, but she also has the challenge that this will feel very bad at times. The mask will barely slip most of the time. The act will mostly be like on the edge of slipping, and she has to kind of deliver a message from the previous wearer of the mask. There is a disaster incoming, so there's quite a lot of stake in what she's got to do.
So the premise of sort of crash landing in a new place and picking something up has a bit of the Wizard of Oz about it, but we've got a mask rather than ruby slippers. But masks, wearing masks, and the atmosphere being unbreathable or dangerous, these are big sci-fi ideas that seem kind of weirdly relevant to the present day or the very recent past. Is that something you're deliberately playing with, or is it pure coincidence?
So I was saying that Misgiven actually originates a bit longer ago, and it's actually pre-pandemic that it originates. We met basically the folks that work with me at the studio. We met in our university studies, and basically from 2018 we kind of know each other. Misgiven kind of was conceptualized back then. And it just happened to be that a couple years later, this whole thing happened. And since then, we joke that we kind of foretold what was gonna come up. Obviously,
You don't
that's
always want to be relevant, do you? But
no,
sometimes I
no.
guess it happens.
No, actually, when the pandemic happened, we were thinking, okay, so is it a good or a bad thing that we have a game about wearing masks all the time? Because people might actually hate that now. Um,
I have
but
to say they're not universally popular from my observations, but the
I have
mask is a good
noticed.
thing and a bad thing in Misgiven. Now,
Yeah, as it was also in our recent experience.
quite. And it's interesting that the protagonist starts out lying about their identity. Now, lots of stories start with the main character making a mistake, doing something wrong, which maybe is going to set the events of the story in motion. But in video games, the player wants to do everything right. So if you give the player the opportunity to make a mistake, they're going to say, no, thank you, I want to do it right. How do you give the player that choice to do the right thing or do the wrong thing and keep it interesting?
Well, so what's like the deal with the Misgiven is that it has a dialogue system centered around what you are ready to say, basically emotionally. We came up with the dialogue system where if you're not open enough yet towards a specific person, there are some things you just cannot squeeze out. Like it doesn't convert from thought to spoken word because you're too nervous, you're not trusting enough, whatever the reason. Your relationship needs to be developed enough for you to tell them specific things. And that's how some things you basically just cannot say. You might not be ready to say to somebody, look, I'm not this person I'm pretending to be, for whatever reason, be it, like I said, the lack of trust, or maybe because you're becoming attached to the role that you're playing. And there's also, like, there are strategies throughout the game for becoming closer to certain people and then maybe admitting the truth or doing the right thing, but it's also going to be tricky to know what the right thing is throughout the game, because your goal ultimately is twofold: to survive and make a new life here if possible, and also ideally to help rescue the city from the danger that's coming. Spoiler, it's kind of an environmental disaster. We also kind of look at it's a veiled parallel, not so veiled parallel to environmental disaster. What's happening here? So the role that you're adopting, this person that you're pretending to be, is actually a very convenient role for you, because it makes people listen to you. People know this person, so you have contacts, you have influence through her. And if you say, no, this is not me, you're back to, I'm a complete stranger in an alien society, in a place I don't know anybody, nobody wants to help me. Being her, you can count upon her friends, her family, her ex-partner that is actually your primary point of contact when you arrive in the city, because you actually, the mask kind of guides you to her through its like digital interface. So it just can be very convenient and sometimes necessary to pretend you're her, and it might be the right thing, but at some point it becomes ambiguous if it is the right thing anymore, or for how long do I keep this up before it's very dangerous that I still pretend to be her. So it's complicated.
And when you say some things you can't actually get out, do you mean that the game won't give the player the option, or do you mean the game will give the player the option, but that the character will not quite be able to communicate the thing that they've tried to say?
Both situations, let's say you basically have three situations. Some things are easy to say, you're always just going to be able to say them because they're just kind of neutral, harmless things to say in a situation. Then there are, you play basically with this openness container that the player has, and there are dialogue options that barely squeeze through your openness into your like answer container.
On
And
a similar
that,
theme, oh, sorry, I've got a
no,
question from the chat has come through, which is from Merwok. I got a question. How do you deal with portraying emotion for characters when everyone's wearing full face masks? Is that a challenge?
we kind of replaced the like the emotions that a face would convey with kind of imperfect, on purpose, alternatives. We have two of them. The dialogue system being one of them. So what I was describing is this whole system that kind of mimics how the character feels. So her nervousness of saying one of these options that just barely is squeezed out is basically showing she's uncomfortable, she's on the spot, she's gonna probably mess up delivering this line. So you might say, okay, tell this person this specific line, and the character is gonna try, but probably say it differently. There's basically visible alterations between what she thought and what she actually says. And this creates a misunderstanding.
Real life
Of
can be
course,
like that sometimes. It doesn't always
yeah,
come out
yeah.
the way you plan it to.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're playing on. And then there are options that are too big for specific moments. So if your openness is not um, passing enough, then you just cannot say that option, but you can squash it. You can like struggle to say it. It doesn't come out. And you might get some blurb about why she's struggling with this, why it just won't pass through. And then the other solution we've come up with to kind of show emotions from the characters are basically big holographic emotes that people project from their masks. They're kind of like big Discord or Twitch emotes that
That would
everybody
be helpful
has.
in real life. We should have that. That could save a lot of trouble.
I don't know, because then why do we have our faces? Actually,
I don't know. My face doesn't express emotions at the best of times. But
actually, that's a good point. I've also been told a lot of times in my life that I'm too stern and unemotive. So actually, maybe you make a good
maybe we
point.
do need this.
Hmm.
Can I ask about the influences on the game? The visual influences, it reminds me of Mobius, and Scavenger's Reign is too recent to have influenced it because it only came on Netflix relatively recently. But there's elements of sort of manga and anime and comic books, and maybe Sable with its flat colors and its masks. What are your influences in design terms, but also in game design terms?
Well, I'll start with game design and like story design, let's say, the setting as well. We started, I think, what was the common ground for me and the creative director, Jan, who sadly isn't here right now. But what was in common for us were rather games like Night in the Woods and Oxenfree, which had younger people kind of put in pretty problematic or like difficult situations in their lives, where either there is some mystery they have to investigate, or they are facing a crisis in their lives. Especially with Night in the Woods, the character going back to live with her parents. So there are parallels. We wanted to basically tell the story of somebody who kind of has to reinvent herself early in life, even though our character is a little bit older. Um, but visually, definitely, you're in the mark with Mobius. That was also one of the early inspirations, because we took inspiration from how the sci-fi of Mobius looks quite organic and interesting, and we didn't want to make something just straight cyberpunk in visual and in feeling. Let's say we don't want to make Misgiven totally dystopian. Um, Other than that, I would say, yeah, some of these, let's say, Scavenger's Reign, I haven't personally even watched it yet, so I can't say if it's an influence yet. Sable
Probably not if
definitely,
you haven't watched it. Sable
Sable
definitely.
can be, but yeah, it definitely is something I have on my list now because you mentioned it. But I would also say stuff that influences is whatever game we play lately. Like I think Citizen Sleeper has been a very good influence specifically for this game. Obviously, Disco Elysium for how vibrant and full of personality the writing is.
We're coming to the end. I'd like to ask a quick question off the back of that, because in terms of the way that game uses humor, because Disco Elysium is a pretty heavy game with heavy themes, and it's full of jokes. Is there a mixture of light and dark? Because the situation you're describing with Misgiven sounds very stressful and tense. Is there an element of humor in there as well?
Yes. I mean, Misgiven still has quite a lot of writing that is left to be done, because right now what we have on Steam is just a snippet of the full game, and the writing is not all there, obviously, but we do off the bat want to put in some comic relief, some jokes that might be either coming from sarcasm or just the unusual setting you find yourself in. Definitely, especially for me, I really, really like rather stupid humor. And even though I'm not the main writer of the game, I basically am kind of co-writing, but or like assisting. I definitely want to squeeze in as many bad jokes as I possibly can. So that's
Well,
my
that sounds
personal goal.
fantastic. But it's currently unsqueezed. Those jokes have not yet been squeezed in, but the demo is available on Steam right now. We're running out of time, so would you like to give the viewer a quick pitch for why they should play Misgiven in demo form?
I would say play it so you can experience a little taster of how stressful and strange this situation is for the character. There's gonna be quite a lot of drama that you can experience already in the demo. Um, and yeah, I mean, I'm bad with pitches, but just go and
No,
play
no,
it.
that was perfect. That was perfect. It's going to be, you should play it because it's going to be quite stressful, which is
Yeah,
what life
yeah.
is like. And if you aren't ready to confront life, then you're not ready for the game. No,
Well, you know, you'll
that's
see
wonderful.
yourself maybe portrayed in some of those situations, especially if you're like me, kind of awkward. So
It could be painfully familiar. That sounds really great. It looks fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. Welcome to
thank you.
AdventureX. Thanks for joining us on the stream, Anca. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.